Coming up on podcast 1067, our first impressions of the Volkswagen ID.4 GTX flagship edition. But how good is it? We'll find out today. Also stick around because VW teased the ID.5. Skoda start delivering their Enyaq here in Europe. GM want to solve charging. That's nice for them. The Ultium Charge 360 is their solution. And Tesla lose a really important member of staff. Now, companies have turnover all the time and people get very obsessed with Tesla's staff turnover, but this one I think is a key one. I'll give you the details on another really busy day of EV news, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to the show. I'm Martin Lee. My job to go through every EV story around the world and just pick out the ones that you really need to know about. We'll start with the Volkswagen ID.4 GTX performance EV flagship. How good is it? We're going to find out today. The GTX's powertrain is a 201 brake horsepower motor on the rear and another motor on the front axle, so it makes it all-wheel drive, and 295 brake horsepower combined. Yet to confirm any torque figures for this. Does 0 to 62 miles an hour, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.2 seconds. First impressions, that's not rapid. I mean, it's good enough, by the way. Top speed limited to 112 miles an hour, and again, I don't care. Top speed makes no difference to me. If I did that speed in the UK, it's lose your license immediately. The judge says, thank you, I'll have that from you. No more driving for you. So maybe in Germany on the Autobahn, I don't know, possibly you want to go faster. Top speed irrelevant now. When it does go on sale, though, this range-topping version of the ID.4 will be carrying a GTX badge, says Autocar, which we're looking at right now on screen if you're watching the YouTube version of the show. The GTI line is centered around the Golf in piston form, but the GTX is centered around the ID.4. And that's interesting because the ID.3, which is the Golf that's not a Golf, don't call it a Golf, they could have made an electric Golf, they did, for a long time, but it's the ID.3, you see, different car, very different, same size, same shape, same segment. Not a Golf, ID.3. They could have started with the GTX, but it's not a global car. You can't get it in the US, whereas everybody seems to want a crossover these days. And so that's why they're doing it with the ID.4. Does it make sense to sport up this, though, which, again, we're looking at if you're watching the visual version of this podcast? Well, I mean, it looks nice. It's hardly a hot hatch. It's got, of course, all-wheel drive, which the ID.4 hasn't had until now. GTX version is €50,000 in Germany, £43,000. Do the equivalent for where you are. Although remember that the German version will have €7,500 subsidy, which is a kind of subsidy split by the government and the car makers themselves to get money off the car. Taking a look at what Auto Express had to say about the car. Their impressions were really good, by the way. Let's go through what their journalists had to say. It's normally rear-wheel drive, and then the all-wheel drive kicks in, so that front motor kicks in, when it senses a loss of traction or wants more power. Then you put your foot down, says Auto Express. To support the more powerful electric motors, it has a sports package, which adds a lowered sport suspension, progressive steering, so altering the steering ratio according to the amount of steering lock that you've got going on. And the optional sports package builds on it further with adaptive dampers. Now, I don't know, again, if you're watching this version, what version we're looking at on screen right now, whether this is with the optional sport package. Look, it looks nice, and I think the ID.4 is about as solid as an EV is on sale around the world right now, and that's all things considered, price, availability, all those things. There's certainly other cars that beat it at this price point for one-off things. So, there's a new front bumper. I can't tell that it's different, really. It's got some new fog lamps. It's got some 20-inch alloys. It's got matrix LED headlights. It's got dynamic indicators. It's got a two-tone paint finish. It's got a black roof. Inside, there are some more accents as well. And so, underneath the skin of this, more importantly, you're asking, what's the specs of this? 77 kilowatt-hour battery pack underneath the floor. That's the biggest battery pack they do for the ID.4 and its sister cars. Charges at 125 kilowatts. And I've seen it charging faster in those YouTube videos that are out there. Estimated range, here we use a WLTP test cycle, and it's 297 miles. That's 17 less than the ID.4. No curb weight. It's going to be chunky, probably 2,200 kilograms plus. And when Volkswagen dropped this powertrain into something like a Cupra, now you're talking, says the Evo magazine. I love Evo. Then they're going to get interested. They said we'll start taking notice of the electric GTI. I'm glad that Evo covered it because, say, Evo is a performance mag and a performance website, and so it's GTX, and they're going to cover it. They weren't massively enamored with it, but why would they? It's not really a performance car, is it? And in fact, things get a little bit worse when you look at some of the US reviews, and Inside EVs are pretty complimentary about it, but raising the point of only the Europeans get the GTX version. So there's some confusion here, because although there will be an all-wheel drive version coming to the US later this year, it may not be a GTX, but it will be all-wheel drive. So what's the difference? I don't know. Maybe it's the sports package. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's talk about how you slow down. Even on this, even on the GTX Sporty version, it's the drum brakes on the rear, which does seem a little weird on a car they want to be sporty, but it makes sense because the motors do the recuperation. The front motor can recover energy in some situations, but it's the rear motor responsible for slowing down the vehicle. The rear motor can brake a deceleration rate of about 0.3 G. After that, friction brakes. In D mode, energy recuperation happens when you put your foot on the brake pedal and it blends it. In B mode, regen starts when you lift off the accelerator, says Inside EVs. EPA range of this 250 miles. I say not this, but the rear-wheel drive version when you think about it. So it's going to be a little bit less when you add the weight and you add the extra motor. Nice inside. It's got that ambient lighting. It's got red stitching, 12-inch center screen, VW's voice assistant, which is about as bad as all the others. All terrible. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's got, you can option the augmented reality head-up display, and that's really good. We saw that in the Audi Q4 e-tron. Surround view camera system, adaptive cruise, travel assistance, some good autonomy features in this. And we couldn't get to the end without a comparison with Tesla, which comes courtesy of Car and Driver. Thank you, Car and Driver, for mentioning that the claimed performance is underwhelming by segment standards. Volkswagen's 6.2 seconds 0 to 62 dash is leisurely by what you would think, delivering on their prediction that Volkswagen's fastest EV is indeed slower than the cheapest and least powerful of Tesla, which is kind of a fair point, and you can't really complain at that comparison, because in the US at least, Model Y, Model 3, two very, very reasonable purchasing decisions. Now over here, Model Y, not a purchasing decision. I haven't got Tesla's website open online, so I would show you what it looks like. There we go. Let's do Tesla Model Y then, the UK. For those watching the video version of this, this is what we see when I click on Model Y. Stay updated. Just a little button that says, want to get an email about it? Yes, you can stay updated if you want to. You can't order one, but we'll email you updates. So, right-hand drive versions of this are just nowhere to be seen. I can't order one, can't be on a waiting list. So that's why, again, people say to me, look, Model Y is better competition. It's not for me. It's not available. It's not even, I shouldn't even mention it. It's not an option. All right, I'm only half joking. Right, let's talk about the ID.5, because very quickly I mentioned the ID.5 got teased recently during that ID.4 presentation, which was kind of weird, very German. It was interesting to watch. Lots of flashing lights. It was indoors at inside a kind of airport hangar, and lots of driving up and down a ramp to show that the car can drive up a ramp. I had no doubt that it would do. I didn't think, oh wow, the car's unveiled, but can it possibly drive up a ramp? Oh no, it can. No, it can. VW have shown me it can drive up a ramp. It's fine. Anyway, but they also teased the ID.5 in camouflage, and I think it looks really nice. So the ID.5 is very similar to the ID.4 from the front and the sides, and the minute you get to the kind of rear view, that's where you can start to see a roofline that is much more swoopy. Recently the Sportback name has been thrown around, particularly Audi. So the Sportback styling, a lot more swoopy. The spoiler moves from the roofline to the top of the boot line. The rear end is different. this is a really compelling car because up until that, the C-pillar, it's kind of an ID.4. So it's got all the space. It looks slightly lifted to me, but we don't know. We have seen it in camouflage a few times, and it is coming. Anyway, so the news that you need to know is the ID.5 got an honourable mention in the ID.4 GTX announcement, and it comes later this year. The two models share the same powertrain, and we look forward to that. Okay, let's move on. Talk about the Skoda Enyaq, the Enyaq IV, aka ID.4 in Skoda clothing. I kind of prefer the look of it, to be honest with you. The styling is nicer, and the specs are otherwise all the same. First car was delivered to a family in Norway. Deliveries in the Scandinavian markets, Western and Central Europe following next month. Yeah, we're still in April. Next month in May and in June. It says ElecDrive, the Enyaq IV 60 and 80 variants, which are analogous to the battery sizes, in other words, the 58 or the 77 kilowatt hour battery, have been available for some time. There's a new 50 model, which is the 52 kilowatt hour battery. Pricing in the UK at least starts at 31,000, and delivery start in a few weeks. This is a really interesting car, this Skoda Enyaq IV. It is, like I say, ID.4 by all intents and purposes, so really well engineered. I think it sits on a good platform. Starting at 31 grand is a really compelling price, but to get the car that you really want, to add all the things in that that I would want to add anyway. I'm not even going like top spec seats and interior and, rear window blinds and things where they sting you on the options list. Faster charging is one of those things that you do have to make sure that you tick on the Skoda Enyaq, otherwise it'll just charge at 50 kilowatts. You need to make sure you go into the options list and spec. I want to charge at the speed that the car can charge at. That seems kind of crazy to me that you have to spec that. A lot has gone onto the options list, and then by the time I spec'd out the car that I wanted, it was super expensive. And I was like, well, I'll just get a Model Y for that. Oh, forgot. Can't get a Model Y. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about General Motors. Has a solution, says The Verge, for crappy EV charging infrastructure. Ouch. It's called Ultium Charge 360. Much like Ford does with its Ford Pass network, the Ultium Charge 360 will integrate GM's own vehicle apps and software with third-party charging services. Who's it working with? Blink, ChargePoint, EVgo, Flow, Greenlots, and SEMA Connect. Yeah, no Electrify America, at least for the announcement. Okay. The goal is to create a seamless experience where the owner of a GM vehicle pulls up, plugs in, and starts charging, says The Verge. A lot will depend on the level of service provided by the third-party charging operators. They say that EV charging in the US is a mess. Broken chargers, fraying cables, and unreliable maps. That sounds bad, and I don't get to experience that. Charging over here, largely okay. We just need more of it. So GM wouldn't say whether they are integrating plug-and-charge capabilities, a new technology standard that, if you don't know, I won't bore you with now, but it's like the Tesla version of you plug in and start charging. It's really what everyone should be doing. The actual chargers, I don't know. I think the hardware is largely okay. Feel free to tear me apart in the comments below, but I think that the hardware is largely okay. It's more about how it all works with the various cars and the billing. You just want to plug in and just, as long as it's reasonably priced electricity, you want to plug in and just start charging, and then whatever it costs, it costs. So that's the thing that I think they have to get right. What will they be doing? Well, they say access to charging. GM will continue to work with third parties and charge point operators and electric utilities and government agencies to make charging easy. Mobile apps, they will continue to update GM vehicle mobile apps to provide a more intuitive mobile experience, they say here, that makes navigating to a charging station, plugging in and paying simple. And that's good. That's the whole problem with charging. It's finding them, making sure they're free and they're working and that you can pay easily. And to help ensure the transition to an EV is seamless, they say, GM is working to offer EV owners charging accessories and installation services tailored to their lifestyle. And it's all getting a bit lifestyle-y now. I'm sure they'll sell you a charger or something and put it into your house. So the thing with charging is it should just be as easy as going to get a chocolate bar from a vending machine. And I use that analogy because vending machines all have contactless payment. A vending machine dispenses something that's about £1 or $1, right? These are not high-ticket items. And yet, don't you find they've all got contactless on? You can even pay on your phone or just wave your wallet or wave your card. At least, maybe the UK is, I don't know, ahead if you haven't got it. I find vending machines all have contactless on. And that's a very low ticket item. And there is no excuse not to have contactless on every single car charger. Now, we have them here, and any that aren't done are being done soon. Was it government legislation or just a very strong recommendation? I'll get back to you on that one in the UK. But all of them, about a year ago, started talking about, hey, we're retrofitting. So you turn up at a charger now, it's got a little contactless thing on it. You just swipe your phone or your card or whatever, and then you've paid. I don't mind, by the way, cards or apps or mobile apps, because then I keep my billing centralized rather than, 20 different credit card or debit card transactions on my bank account. But maybe I'm a bit of a weirdo for liking it nice and neat. So I don't mind apps and charge cards and stuff, but a lot of people, I appreciate, a lot of people want to turn up, wave a card and go. And that's all we need to do. And all these systems are nice. Ford do it with their Ford Pass, and they all announce them like they're building, like Ford announced, like, we're going to give access to 60,000 chargers, making it sound like they're building out a supercharging network when they're just doing deals. GM haven't done that. GM have been very clear. We're doing deals with third-party networks, but they haven't got to build their own networks. They're just got to get charging made easier. And ultimately, they all want to try and get to that gold standard of Tesla. Because I always say there's three reasons to buy a Tesla. There's the powertrain, which is the best in any EV in the world. There's the software, which controls the powertrain and the user experience, and that's the best in any car in the world. And I'll fight you on that. And then there's the supercharging network. And Mr. Musk doesn't believe in moats, according to what he said once, but it's the biggest moat going. Because it's just brilliant and just works. And so, that's the only three reasons I think you should buy a Tesla. And again, Tesla fans are screaming now, but don't you like the styling? No, they're just okay. And the interior with the crazy good vents. I mean, yeah, that's nice. Well done. But I get inside a Tesla and I think, is this it? Like, if you paid 60 grand, because they're very expensive here because we have import taxes and stuff. Like, well, if you wanted to drive a piston car for this price, you could sit in a really nice car. I don't drive a piston car. But those are the three reasons why Tesla is far and away ahead of everybody else. In my opinion, at the moment. Again, you may disagree. Let's talk about Ford. I'm sure they would disagree. Ford and the Mustang Mach-E. I missed this story last week, so apologies. The Mustang Mach-E was going to be the pace car for NASCAR, which I thought was interesting. I imagine there's a few people watching NASCAR going, I don't like these electric cars. It was last Sunday. It was at Talladega, says Fox News. Ford's electric cars have come a long way in the last decade. The Focus did 115 miles. Mach-E will do 300 plus. And it was the pace car at NASCAR last weekend. I didn't see it. We don't get it over here. But if you did and you saw it, did it make an appearance? Did it get booed by the NASCAR fans? I'd like to know. That's cool, right? That's cool that it's reaching new places and just. I think it's just a very cool thing that they're doing things like that, even if it's probably, going into the lion's den a little bit. Right, let's talk about Tesla's head of UI. I've already mentioned on this podcast, I think that it's one of the areas that Tesla do really well. I hope they've got strength in depth in that department. I'm sure they have, because their design, their software is just the best. And their longtime head of user interface design has left the company, and in doing so has put some images online of some unreleased design bits that we hadn't seen before of the Cybertruck. This is Electrek's website I'm showing you right now if you're watching the visual version of this. These designs were partially seen, says Electrek, in the Cybertruck launch, but never so clearly. According to his LinkedIn profile, he left the company last month to make his own design firm called Modern Graphic Anstalt. According to Fred at Electrek, he's been replaced as head of UI design at Tesla by a chap called Ben Cunningham, who came from Facebook last year, and these images are well and truly off the internet, deleted very quickly. I think that if this is the direction that they are going, it's even more Apple-like. And the chap who designed this, by the way, came before he was at Tesla, he was at Apple. And so, very simple. I know it's only a kind of a mock-up of the Cybertruck screen, but very monochrome and very simple to look at, and I think it looks nice. If this is the direction they're going, should look good. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Hyundai Kona. There's been whispers about its uncertain future in its home market of Korea, and now we know, thanks to a CNET article, a Roadshow article, that the Kona is indeed being discontinued in its home market of Korea. We learned it's going away from the Yonhap News Agency, discontinuing it to focus on the Ioniq 5 flagship, says CNET. Hyundai recently revealed a refreshed model with new looks but an identical powertrain. It's gone on sale in Europe and the US. I get one on May the 10th, so I get the new Kona with the funky lights and smooth grille and all. It's the ultimate spec. I think it's the top one anyway. That arrives on May the 10th. I'll have that for a couple of months and I'll let you know what I think of it. But in Korea, in its home market, no longer being sold. That is because they want to put all of their effort behind the Ioniq 5, and who can blame them? Because, the Kona isn't a compromise car. It is, because there's cars that were designed to be combustion cars that they've had the batteries stuffed in. There's cars that were designed to be combustion, plug-in or electric, like the Kona. So it was designed to have batteries in it, but it's still a compromise car. New platform from Hyundai Kia is a pure EV platform, and you can't really beat that. Final story today, the third VW plant in China is under construction now. The Volkswagen Group of China have begun construction of their all-electric MEB plant at Anhui, A-N-H-U-I. It's the third of their pure electric vehicle production facilities in China, following the completion of their factory in Anting and Foshan. Anting is their joint venture company with SAIC, and Foshan is with FAW. This is going to be the third factory is done in the middle of next year, and it'll start making cars in 2023. And by 2025, so in 4 years' time, VW Group of China alone, VW, will be making 1.5 million pure EVs every single year out of these three factories. Again, the China news is just mega, particularly with VW. The China numbers alone for VW are going to be huge. Before you add in US, which comes online, that's Chattanooga, and of course all the European facilities as well in Germany. And that is your news for today. So much more we could have talked about. Let's get on to question of the week with eMobilityNorway.com. What's the most effective consumer education regarding EVs? A big job to do. What's the best way to reach people and tell them about EVs? Is it television advertising? Is it social media advertising? Is it blogs and podcasts and YouTube shows? Let me know. Read out yours on Sunday. My email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com. Check out the Patreon page if you want to. Our Patreon fans fund this podcast. It's patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Mentioned for our premium partners, as always, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, nationalcarcharging.com and AlohaCharge.com, Derek Riley from the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, Richard at rsev.co.uk for buying and selling EVs in the UK, and of course eMobility Norway. Have a good and see you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.